I had just moved to a quiet suburban neighborhood. It was only a few months ago. I thought a sweet little bungalow would help me heal after my breakup. I wanted peace, something I couldn't find in the chaos of city life. At first, everything felt fine, but soon enough, I started to notice something strange. It began with a tapping. It always happened around midnight, echoing through the wall from my neighbor's side. I assumed it was just renovation noise. As the days passed, I found it harder to ignore. The sound jostled me awake. My heart raced each time it startled me from my sleep. It seemed to know when I was trying to drift off. Then the tapping grew into whispers. I lay in bed one night, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But no, the whispers became clearer. "Help me," they called softly. I tried to tell myself I was losing it, but I could feel the fear crawl at my spine. It was dark, and I felt alone. I still hadn't met my neighbors. Maybe it was time to reach out. One evening, I stood at the fence of the neighbor's yard. The light was dim, but I could see a figure moving in odd patterns. I felt it chill, but I pushed through the fear and approached. "Hi, I'm Emily," I said, trying to sound friendly. The neighbor turned their head slowly. Their eyes were dark, unsettling. "Strange things happen here," they whispered. My stomach twisted. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. They spoke about noises at night and shadows dancing at dusk. Their eyes had a depth I didn't understand. I pretended to nod along, but something felt very wrong. After that, I went home heart pounding. The whispers called out again, "Help me." I felt trapped in a nightmare. Were they reaching out, or was it something deeper? I pressed my ear against the wall. Instead of answers, more questions flooded my mind. That night, I saw my neighbor standing in the yard. I peered out the window, feeling my heart race. They held something small and shiny in their hand, but I couldn't tell what it was. I jumped back in fear when the whispering rose again. "Help me." Was it from me this time? I was caught in a spiral of dark thoughts. Then they looked directly at me. I froze. Their lips moved, but no sound came. Maybe they were warning me. Maybe I was too close to something bad. I couldn't shake the feeling that I should have never moved next door. The tapping returned, louder than ever, making me jump. I turned to look again. The yard was empty. Silence fell again, but it smothered me. What was real? I felt like I was losing my mind, piecing together a puzzle that made no sense. The creepy feeling lingered, and I knew, somehow, it would haunt me long after I left this place. The next day, I tried to act normal. I got coffee and went for a walk, hoping the fresh air would clear my head. The tapping and whispers haunted me like shadows I couldn't shake off. I needed to know more about my neighbor. What did they mean by strange things? As I walked past their yard, I caught sight of a garden gnome peeking out from behind some bushes. It was oddly placed, tilted, almost like it was watching me. I laughed to myself, trying to ease the tension in my chest. Just a decoration, I thought. But then I noticed something. Next to the gnome was a small wooden box, half hidden by leaves. My heart raced. I felt an urge to get closer. I glanced around to make sure no one saw me. Kneeling down, I brushed the leaves away. The box seemed old, maybe handmade. I could see faint markings on it, but I couldn't make out the words. The whispers flashed in my mind. "Help me." Had they left this box for me? Before I could think too much, I opened it. Inside, there was a crumpled piece of paper and a trinket, a tarnished key. I held the key in my hand, feeling its weight. The paper was torn and faded, but a few words were still legible. "Find the key. Free me." I closed the box quickly, glancing around again. My hands trembled. What was this? Was it some kind of sick joke? A warning? I needed answers, but fear was creeping back in. I decided to go home, clutching the box tightly. Once inside, I sat on the floor, staring at the key. It felt heavy with meaning. What did it unlock? I forced myself to focus on the paper. The words, "Find the key, free me," echoed in my mind. It could be a prank, but deep down, I felt the unsettling pull to investigate. That night, the tapping was back, louder and more frantic than before. The whispers intertwined with the tapping, swirling in the dark. "Help me." They floated through my mind, almost pleading. I gripped the key tightly, feeling both fear and resolve. I had to understand. I woke in the middle of the night to a soft light flickering outside. Peeking through the window, I saw my neighbor in their yard again, holding a lantern. I felt my heart drop. They were beckoning me with that small, shiny object again. My instincts screamed at me to stay put, but curiosity drew me closer. I crept toward my door, heart pounding. As soon as I stepped outside, everything went dark. The lights from the neighbor's lantern flickered and vanished. I scanned the yard, but I was met with shadows. What was happening? I turned to go back inside, but suddenly I heard a rustling behind me. I spun around. Someone, or something, was looming in the darkness. My breath caught in my throat. The figure before me was shrouded in darkness, making it impossible to see any details. A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the porch. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. The only response was silence, thick and heavy. I squinted, trying to make out any movement. The shadows flickered, then twisted, as if they had a life of their own. Then a voice broke through the quiet. It was low, almost a whisper, yet eerily clear. "You have the key." My heart raced. I clutched the key in my pocket, suddenly feeling its presence as if it were alive. "What do you want?" I stammered, wishing I could sound braver. I wanted to turn and sprint back inside, but something made me stay. The figure stepped closer, just enough for a slice of light to illuminate a face. It was my neighbor, but a different version of the person I thought I knew. Their eyes glinted with an unusual intensity, as though they were peering into my very soul. "You must use the key. It's the only way." Use it for what? I felt a mix of anger and confusion boil inside me. What is happening here? The neighbor gestured toward the shadows, and the whispers erupted around us. Louder, frantic. "Free me! Free us all!" I could see now that they weren't entirely alone. Shadowy forms shifted behind them. Were these the souls trapped by whatever was happening? Panic bubbled within me. I took a step back, ready to bolt. But then I remembered the paper. The words, "Find the key, free me." Maybe I wasn't just here to run away. "Free who?" I shouted back, my voice louder. "What are you talking about?" Their eyes flickered with recognition, maybe even desperation. "The place where the gnome watches. Unlock it. You'll understand once you do. It's a choice," they said urgently. "What choice?" My head spun. Before they could respond, a loud crash echoed from deep within their property, as if something had disturbed the very ground. The whispering grew erratic, drowning out my thoughts. My instincts screamed at me to turn and flee. "Get out of here!" I shouted, and then I took off toward my house. I stumbled into the living room, locking the door behind me. I pressed my back against it, struggling to breathe. The key felt cold against my palm, and the paper crumpled within my grip. Was it really a way to free them, or was it a trap? That's when I saw it. My reflection in the glass of the front window revealed a shadow behind me in the room. no longer just outside. My heart dropped as I turned slowly, knowing I was no longer alone. I froze, gripping the key tightly as panic flooded my veins. A figure loomed in the dark corner of the room, their form blending into the shadows. I blinked hard, hoping my eyes were playing tricks on me. But when I opened them again, the shadow remained. "Who are you?" I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. The shape stirred, stepping into a sliver of moonlight filtering through the window. It was my neighbor again, or at least someone who looked like them. But there was something off, an unsettling twist to their smile, and an odd glimmer in their eyes. "Did you really think you could run?" The voice was softer now, more sinister. My pulse quickened. "What do you want? Stay away from me!" I took a cautious step back, nearly tripping over the coffee table. "Why are you afraid? I'm just here to help." They tilted their head, and a cold chill swept over me. "You hold the key to so much more than you know." I shook my head, mind racing. "What do you mean? Free who? What's happening?" Their smile widened, revealing teeth too sharp, too white. "You heard the whispers. They need you. All of them. They want to be free. You're the only one who can unlock their prison." "Unlock?" I repeated, confused. "What prison? What are you talking about?" The neighbor gestured behind them, and I followed their gaze. My eyes widened as I spotted something glimmering in the corner, a momentary flicker of light. A metal box, dusty and forgotten, sat seemingly waiting for me. It looked like the kind of box someone would hide secrets in. The figure returned their focus to me, eyes piercing. "All it takes is the key, and you can end their suffering. You can help me." "Why would I help you?" I shot back, my voice quaking. I took another step back, this time bumping into the wall. "Because if you don't, they will come for you too." The shadows seemed to twitch at their words. "They won't rest until they are free." My mind flashed back to the whispered pleas outside, the urgency of the figure on my porch. Was I really their last hope? A pit formed in my stomach as I thought about it. What do they want from me? Suddenly, the room darkened. I gasped as the light flickered and then went out, plunging me into eerie silence. My heart raced with dread as I fumbled for my phone, trying to find light. I turned it on, but the beam barely cut through the dark. That's when I heard it, a soft whisper creeping through the darkness, echoing through the house. "Help us! Help us!" Then the shadows moved, blurring around my neighbor. They began to transform, twisting in a way that was impossible to comprehend. I stumbled back, fully realizing the gravity of the situation. "Use the key!" the figure snarled, their voice now a chilling echo. "Or face the consequences." My grip tightened on the key. I had a choice to make, but every instinct screamed at me to find a way out. Then a loud bang came from the back door. Something was trying to get in. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't stay here, yet I couldn't run either. "Unlock it," the figure urged, their shadow stretching toward me. "Before it's too late." I felt the key pulse in my hand, and every nerve in my body screamed for me to decide. With no time left, I faced the darkness, unsure of what awaited me. I could feel the shadows tugging at me, a chill wrapping around my limbs. The back door banged again, louder this time, accompanied by a low growl. Panic surged through me as I moved closer to the wall, almost merging with it. "Stop!" I shouted, wishing I could shove the fear from my throat. But instead of retreating, the figure seemed to flourish in the darkness, their form unfurling like a dark flower. "You must understand," they urged, and their voice twisted into something agonizingly familiar. "Every moment you hesitate, you put yourself at risk. They want to be free, but they need your help." I shook my head. "No, I don't want any part of this." A tremor of dread ran through me as another thud echoed from the door, the wood creaking ominously. I shone my phone toward the figure. Their eyes glinted with a predatory hunger that made my skin crawl. I glanced back at the box in the corner. It seemed to beckon, a silent promise of answers if I dared to action something. "Use the key!" The words became an urgent growl. "What's in that box will reveal everything." "Reveal what?" I felt torn, caught in a web of fear and curiosity. What if opening it makes things worse? "There is only one way to know. Don't you want to understand the truth?" They took a step closer, their presence suffocating. The roar from outside came again, a desperate brushing against my door. I could almost picture the faces behind it, twisted and haunting, just on the other side, waiting for their chance. I was caged between the choice of using the key and the imminent threat buried within the shadows of my home. With trembling hands, I stepped forward. The figure's eyes flashed in approval. I brought the key to the lock on the box. Before I did anything, I sensed a shift in the air, a disturbance. Then, a loud crash shattered the tension. The back door splintered open, slamming against the wall. A dark figure spilled into the room, indistinct yet daunting, silhouetted by the moonlight streaming in behind it. They were not alone. Whispers flared and echoed through the room like a nightmare come to life, a chorus of voices I could barely comprehend, filled with desperation and rage. "Help us!" they cried in unison, the sound rumbling through every corner of my mind. I staggered back, glimpsing the box in my peripheral vision. The key hovered just above the lock. They desperately needed me, didn't they? My heart raced. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something dangerous, where the only solution was to plunge into the abyss. I made a decision then, almost instinctively. I would unlock the box. Maybe I would find out what these tortured souls wanted. But as the key turned in the lock, a chill ran through me. The figure from the shadows lunged, their sharp grin widening in anticipation. Too late now, isn't it? Then everything fell into a deafening silence. I barely had time to register what was happening before the box burst open. I had to know what lay inside. The whispers grew louder, drowning everything else out. And that's when I saw it. A flicker of ethereal light erupted from the box, illuminating all the dark corners of the room. I knew in that moment there was no turning back. The light spilled out like liquid silver, flooding the room with an otherworldly glow. I squinted, my heart hammering in my chest as visions danced before my eyes. Faces twisted in sorrow and anger emerged, flickering like flames in the wind. They seemed both distant and painfully close, their expressions charged with emotion. "What is this?" I whispered, my voice trembling. I had unlocked something, but what? The figure from the shadows growled behind me, now a tangible presence, a weight pressing down on my shoulders. "You've done it now," they hissed. "You've unleashed what was contained. Suddenly, the whispers morphed into a clamor, overlapping and chaotic. "Find us! Release us! You're our only chance!" The voices wrapped around me, encasing me in their desperation. I stumbled backward, trying to process the scene unfolding. The light pulsed, casting eerie shadows across the walls that danced like phantoms. "I didn't mean to," I stammered, struggling against the force of their collective urgency. "What do you want from me?" The dark figure lunged forward, grasping my arm with a grip that sent a jolt through my body. "Listen to them. They can't break free without your help. You have the key." I glanced at the box, still glowing with the light of trapped souls. It felt alive, pulsating with a rhythm that matched my racing heart. Could I really help them? How could I trust the intentions of something I could barely comprehend? Then, in the chaos, a single voice broke through, clear and direct. "We are trapped in their world, flesh and shadows. You must help us cross." I recognized that voice. It was the one that had haunted my dreams. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. "Cross where?" I asked, searching for understanding amid the fray. "To the other side," the voice urged. "To be free. But you must choose now." The figure tightened their hold, practically dragging me toward the box. The air vibrated with tension, excitement, fear. "You must make the call," they said, their voice almost pleading now. "Once you make your decision, the light will guide the way." I felt the weight of their desperation settle on my chest, mixing with my own swirling confusion. I had two paths before me: dive deeper into this strange and frightening world, or slam the lid shut on the echoes of the past. But then I saw it, a shadow lurking at the edge of the light, a new presence, different from the cries that filled the room. Cold and familiar, a figure was slipping in and out of the glow, its eyes locked onto mine. "Don't listen to them," it yelled, shattering the reverberating voices. My breath caught in my throat. It was someone I recognized, somewhere between the living and the dead. "This is a trap. You can't trust what you don't understand." The room felt like it was twisting onto itself, the walls bending, voices overlapping in a frantic crescendo. I could hardly think. The weight of my decision pressed down harder than the impending rush of shadows closing in around me. I had to choose, but was I already too late? I stood frozen, the sensation of being pulled in multiple directions, almost too much to bear. The light roared louder, and shadows danced like they were alive. I glanced back at the figure holding my arm, eyes wild with urgency. "You must act," they yelled, their grip tightening. I glanced at the box again. It pulsed, begging me to reach inside. What harm could come from just looking? But the warning from the familiar voice echoed in my head. A trap. Something terrible could happen if I acted too hastily. "You don't understand," I shouted, trying to make them see. "This could all be a game to manipulate me. I can't trust you." The figure's eyes darkened with rage, and suddenly unexpected fear surged through me. Before I could second-guess myself, the glowing box erupted in a blinding flash, illuminating every crevice of the room. I shielded my eyes, but I couldn't escape the heat that radiated from it. Maybe it was just a lamp, yet I could feel the weight of so many souls tethered to it, pleading for help. "Please," the chorus cried again, urgency threading through their voices. "Let us go." But then the cautious voice chimed in once more. "You're playing with forces you don't comprehend. They don't just want to cross, they want to take your place." A chill ran down my spine. What did that mean? I felt the figure shift beside me, their energy transforming from frantic to determined. "Make your choice," they urged. "Now!" My panic surged. I couldn't let myself be a pawn in this game. Just as I turned to shutter the box, the shadows lunged forward, rushing around us like a tidal wave. The air crackled with apprehension, and a sudden inky dark filled the corners of the room. Then everything went dark. I gasped, my eyes racing around for a point of reference. The shadows pulsed and twisted, creating a suffocating barrier that cut me off from the light. My breath came quickly as I realized I was trapped in a void, echoes of laughter taunting me from all directions. "Help us!" The voices were now sinister, urging me to join them in the darkness. I stumbled, and as I did, my hand traced the cool surface of the box again. But now it felt different. Instead of the vibrant pulse, a darkness crept over it, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just stepped into someone's nightmare. I gripped it, feeling desperate to understand. "Who are you?" I shouted, hoping someone would answer through the growing chaos. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the flickering edge of the light. My heart dropped. It was someone I hadn't seen in years, someone I didn't want to encounter now. "You shouldn't have come here," they said, their voice a low whisper that echoed into the void. "Why? What do you mean?" I demanded, the confusion mixing with dread racing through me. "Because now they'll claim you too." The walls vibrated with another surge of power, and I realized I was running out of time. Would I betray my own instincts or delve deeper into a reality I was unprepared for? As the shadows swirled menacingly, I made my choice. The shadows twisted and surged around me, and I felt heat building in the center of my chest. Panic clawed at my throat, making it hard to breathe. The figure's words hung in the air, a dire warning I couldn't shake. I couldn't let fear dictate my next move. I squeezed the box tighter, feeling its jagged edges bite into my palm. "What do you want?" I shouted into the void, desperation leaking into my voice. Silence fell, but it was short-lived. The laughter returned, low and mocking, spiraling around me like a sinister wind. Then a flicker of light broke through the shadows, and suddenly I was no longer alone. More figures emerged, their outlines dim but full of purpose. They stepped closer, whispering to me, their voices a dissonant symphony that chilled me to the bone. "Join us," they coaxed. "You don't need to fight." "No!" I yelled, taking a step back. With every step, they moved closer, their hands reaching out as if to envelop me. I closed my eyes and pressed against the box, desperately trying to think of a way out. "Get back!" I shouted, but they didn't retreat. Instead, they transformed from shadows into indistinct shapes that danced just outside my vision. "What do you think will happen?" the familiar figure asked, stepping again into the edge of the light. Their voice trembling, it pierced through the panic. "Do you trust them?" My mind raced, trying to discern the truth from the lies. Maybe this was all a game, a trick designed to lure me into surrender. The chilling realization struck me like ice water. "You're lying!" I screamed, frustration bubbling over. "You want to trap me!" "Do you think this is all about you?" the shadowed figures hissed. Their faces flickered like candles, filled with their demands hidden beneath layers of darkness. "It's about all of us." Without thinking, I took another step backward. Suddenly, the shadows surged, encroaching on me, wrapping my legs in darkness. It was suffocating. I could see the swirling maelstrom of despair as faces materialized among the shadows. There were cries for help, murmured prayers, And then the figures grew silent, locking eyes with me. My heart raced. "What do you want?" I repeated, more to myself than to them. That's when I saw it, my reflection. It shimmered in the box, but it wasn't right. My eyes were hollow, a darkness swirling deep within. "No," I whispered, backing away from the revelation. The laughter turned to shrieks of rage. "You don't understand," a figure snarled, lunging forward, arms outstretched as if to drag me down into the abyss. "No!" I yelled, feeling the pull weaker. I had to fight against it. The box, perhaps it was my only chance. I reached for it again, feeling that pulsing energy flicker beneath my fingers. "Release me!" I shouted as I wrenched it open. And then, everything went still. The shadows froze, their forms caught in mid-motion, while the box emitted a brilliant light that sliced through the darkness. I shielded my eyes as energy crackled around me, and in that moment I realized this was my only chance. I'd either find freedom or become forever entangled in their web. But as the light spread, something shifted in the void. The laughter rang out again, but this time it was different. A hint of desperation laced through it. I took a deep breath, deciding to confront whatever awaited me on the other side. With the box open and my heart pounding, I pushed into the brilliant light, ready for whatever came next. The light enveloped me, warm yet blinding. I felt a tug at my core, like being pulled through water. The darkness I had just fled faded away, replaced by an expanse so bright I thought I might dissolve into it. But then, just as abruptly, the light dimmed, and I found myself standing in an unfamiliar place. It felt surreal, as if I'd stepped into a fragmented memory or a dream. The ground beneath me was solid, but flickered with colors like static on a screen. I looked around, scanning my new environment. There were no shadows, no figures, just an eerie stillness that hummed with unseen energy. "Where am I?" I murmured, my voice wavering in the silence. For a moment, nothing responded. Then, from the corners of my vision, shapes began to form. Not the shadows I had just escaped, but something different, something more terrifying. They looked like people, but their faces were obscured, as if the light couldn't quite catch them. They stood in a circle, watching silently. I blinked, and one of them stepped forward. Its features began to sharpen, and I recognized the face. It was the familiar figure, the one who had called out to me. "What is this?" I demanded, clutching the box tighter. "Why are you here?" "Welcome to the threshold," the figure said, their voice smooth but laced with tension. "You've crossed a barrier, and now you must make a choice." Choice? What choice? My heart raced, every instinct screaming at me to run, to escape this eerie place filled with blurred faces and hidden intentions. "Join us," they said, extending a hand, "or leave this behind and face the shadows once more." My mind reeled. "Which shadows?" I asked. "What do you mean?" "Every choice has its consequence." The figure stepped back, and the crowd shifted closer, their faceless heads nodding as if they were all in agreement. "You feel their pull, don't you?" I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. This isn't a choice at all. I felt the walls of pressure close in on me, the uncertainty overwhelming. What will happen if I refuse? The figure smiled, but it didn't reach their eyes. "You will be free, but free to what? The shadows cannot be escaped easily." A chill crept up my spine. Their vague threats hung heavy in the air. Were they trying to manipulate me? Fear crept back in. I gathered my courage. "No, I won't join you," I declared. Then, as if reacting to my declaration, the light flickered violently. A low rumble echoed around me, shaking the ground. The figures started to shift, their shapes distorting in the intensity of the glow. I shielded my eyes as the energy pulsed harder, the world around me blurring. "No!" the familiar figure shouted, their face twisting in anger. "You don't understand!" Before I could process their warning, the ground beneath me cracked open like shattered glass. I fell through, the world above disappearing into chaos. An icy wind rushed around me as I plummeted into darkness. The last thing I saw was the twisted faces of the figures scrambling to keep me from falling. And then, everything went dark. I woke up, gasping, hitting the floor hard. I blinked furiously, trying to fight off the disorientation. Sunlight poured through the windows of my bungalow, casting a warm glow over everything. The normalcy of it felt surreal, like waking up from a terrifying dream that lingered just out of reach. I pushed myself up, breathing heavily, heart still racing. It took a moment for my senses to settle. Everything felt calm. Too calm. I glanced around the room, my surroundings seemingly unchanged since the night before. The sound of birds chirping outside felt comforting, grounding. But the remnants of shadows clung to my memory, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. I focused on shaking off the fear. Maybe I had indeed escaped whatever nightmare had unfolded. I washed my face, trying to erase the sense of dread that hung above me like a cloud. I made my way to the kitchen, still feeling that gnawing emptiness inside my chest. I needed to move on. Days passed, and while the tapping was gone, I found myself peering out the window at the neighbor's property. Their yard seemed even more overgrown than before, the garden gnomes still tilted like it was frozen in time. I wanted to believe I was free, that whatever had happened was a figment of my imagination. But as I walked the neighborhood, whispers of unease still lingered, ricocheting in my mind. Sometimes I saw them, a shadow darting past the corner of my eye, a voice that sounded nearly familiar echoing in the stillness. It unnerved me when I'd lie awake at night, listening intently for anything outside, wondering if I had truly let loose whatever was trapped. One evening, while sitting on my porch, I caught sight of the neighbor's back door creaking open. I felt my heartbeat quicken, the memories flooding back unbidden. I blinked, and that unnerving figure stepped outside, just as I had seen before. Yet on the surface, nothing had changed. Their dark eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I couldn't look away. I held my breath, bracing for something to happen. But instead, they simply turned and walked back inside, leaving the door ajar. An unsettling twist settled in my stomach. Did they even notice me? I wanted to scream that I was free, yet I felt more entangled than ever. Through it all, a lingering question gnawed at my mind. Was it truly over? My hands still trembled when I encountered unexplained sounds or flickers of movement. I wanted to understand what I had unleashed, but fear held me back. Weeks later, I met a neighbor across the street while gardening, a friendly, elderly woman with kind eyes. She seemed oblivious to any oddness, and for the first time in a long while, I chuckled at the vibrant pinks and yellows that bloomed in their yard. "You've lived here long?" I asked, shifting the conversation. "Only a few years," she responded, "but I've always heard things at night, strange things from that house next door." When she said that, the sunlight dimmed, a cloud crossing the sky. My heart dropped. "What kind of things?" I blurted. Her brow furrowed, and she looked toward the neighbor's yard, then back to me. "Whispers, like calls for help. You can feel it sometimes. The air is thick with it." I felt my throat constrict, the tension creeping back. "You hear it too?" She nodded slowly, gazing longingly back at the neighbor's side. "But we just try to mind our own business." In that moment, I realized the weight of my experience lay heavy in the air. I was part of a puzzle beyond my understanding, tied to the unknowns of that neighbor's house, tied to whispered moments that might never be completely put to rest. I moved away from the conversation, heart pounding. As the sun began to set, cloaking the neighborhood in soft shadows, I stepped back inside, taking a deep breath. I couldn't shake the sense of being watched. I didn't know if the ghosts of that night would ever truly fade, or if they were lingering, waiting for someone else to heed their cries. Maybe I had escaped, but something told me I wasn't finished yet. With a final glance over my shoulder, I closed the door behind me. I had survived, but the mystery remained. Maybe I was free, or maybe, just maybe, I had merely opened a door I couldn't close.